Hello, everyone, both live and on YouTube. Welcome to another Decisions Lunch and Learn. I'm going to be your host for today, Gregory Oldston. And as you can see, we have our YouTube channel is still up, as y'all would expect it to be. We're getting new videos there. We've already had some new ones added since our last Lunch and Learn. And a reminder to check out DocBot AI through your support chat in Decisions if you're on versions 7 through 9. That's about it for the announcements. So everyone feel free to start throwing in questions while I switch over to my decisions environment. This will take just a moment. Here we go. All right, y'all should be able to see it just fine. Yeah, cool. All right. I'm going to bring up the Q&A. This will take just a moment on my end. But I see that we do not have anything yet, so no rush on that. While we're waiting for questions, I would like to go over a current video that is in the works, and that is going over external assignments. So how this works is we have the ability to pause a decision's flow until the completion of an external API service, at which point the flow will then resume again. And the way that this works is by using the assignment step. I'll break the lock for now, just to show y'all how this works. So the run report and send email are just some little add-ons I did for this particular setup. But the idea here is that you have a flow that's running, and eventually you're going to want it to stop at some point in order for an external API to complete. The way that this would work is that you use an assignment step or the show form step and set to assigned. Who you assign it to doesn't really matter as long as the credentials are accessible through the API, either via login or via the user session that this person is in. You create the assignment name, assignment action name, and then on the assignment setup down here, you're going to add actions at the bottom. And these actions are what are going to be able to be called by the external API service. So here I've created an approved action. You can only create one. You don't have to create separate routes. I just created two to incorporate separate routes. I named the outcome and the action name the same. Uncheck can respond via email, and then the same thing with rejected. So now these two particular actions can now be performed by an external service. Also, I see that we actually have a question now. So let's go over that and we'll return to this if there's time. All right, Peter is asking, hi, I want to upload / manage a few methodology documents through the Decisions UI. The surface and surface them to form users by putting a View Methodology button on some forms. The form flow would pick the right document based on some form data. What are the best practices for managing displaying documents like this? Okay, I'm going to exit out of this and we're going to create a separate flow real quick back in our Lunch and Learn Monday. Yeah, here we go. All right, and let me let you talk as well. The ask sounds pretty straightforward, but just want to make sure we're on the same page here. So there you are. All right, you should be able to talk now. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're looking to display a document dynamically to be fetched somewhere on either a user form or a dashboard or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, that's right. It would just be a small button that if the user clicked it, they could see these documents if they wanted to. So it's not a major part of the form. And I was trying to understand like the document reference versus document data and how to, do it efficiently.
Absolutely. All right, so there are a few different ways that you can do this depending on your setup. If you're looking for performance, file reference is probably going to be your best option. But I do say that with an asterisk, and how your process is set up may necessitate one, or one might be easier to integrate. So let's just start by creating this here. We'll have a create new form. And all we're going to do is I'm actually going to create a sub dialog, right? If I can spell that. Here we go. And the reason I'm creating a sub dialog button is so that it pops up the form in a separate tab and you don't have the users crowding this form with the document display. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
All right, cool. So I'm going to hit show form. And now there are a few different ways that this can fetch, all right? Because you're going to need to fetch data into this somehow. The first way is you can use the inputs here. So if you have a list of documents that can be chosen from, and they're either file reference or file data, or I guess you could do it by document ID. You would pass in your data type here. I'm just going to create one for sake of example here. I'll call this my documents, and I'm going to make it of type file data. So we'll save that. And now whenever this button is clicked, we want to, I believe it's just in Data Explorer. Yeah, we've got the form input data. So that's fantastic. We don't even need to fetch here. So we'll go to our toolbox. I'm going to show another form here, and this one's just going to be a document viewer. All right. So doc viewer, and we'll use the same control here, document viewer. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Slow crawl upward to fill the screen. Here we go. All right. And I'll just call this closed because that's all they need to do, right? They don't have to actually interact with this. They just need to view it. And this will be our document. Okay. So no active form flow here. I'm just going to call this doc viewer again. Title doesn't really matter for this, but let's save that. And now I'm going to fetch this from the flow data coming from the form input data. All right. So I'm going to show you a few different paradigms because how you build out your structure is going to vary, like which approach would be better for your use case. But in this approach right here, what you're going to have is a sub-dialog flow here. And what it will do is whenever they click on it, whatever document got passed into these inputs will be what shows here. So you could use all the logic before the form is even hit to determine that. Another option would be to fetch documents dynamically based upon what users put into the form. In that case, you're going to want to save those documents somewhere, such as maybe with attaching them to particular folders with a file, like create file reference entity service, or maybe you just have a list of them in some sort of database structure that you can fetch and move here. But I don't know. I'm going to make this a constant for now. But the idea is you would set up, your inputs here. And let me see if I have a file here that would um, function in the way that I'm hoping for. Do I have a... Pardon me for a moment. I'm going to snag something here. Where'd it go? Ah, here we go. All right, cool. So now if I run this will take just a moment here. And we debug this. That file has already been added as an input to this form. So whenever we hit show form, it's going to display it right here. This is just a thumbnail that was created for one of our videos.
Mhm.
So that's one way to do it. Another way would be to, I'm going to show you the internal service step just so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on here. So integration, internal services, call internal service, and we want the file reference service, which is going to be over here. And we want, I think it's create entity from file reference. This is pretty cool. So let's say that instead you have a separate process, not in this flow, okay? But you have a separate flow that would utilize this step. It specifies what folder you're going to attach this to, and it creates a file reference entity based upon a selected input file. So you can create multiple of these and attach them all to a folder that would have access to that particular file reference. Now, in order for that to work with this case, I'm going to attach these to a constant folder. I guess I'll go outside and create a folder to attach it to. So let me do that real quick. All right. So let's create a folder in here. And I'm actually not going to allow anything to be built here. I'm just going to call it house files. And that's all we need right there. I'm just going to grab this folder ID, get designer folder ID, copy text, done. We're going to go back in here. And again, assuming this would be a separate process that does this, right? So folder ID will be a constant, specify that here. The file reference, we can actually load that from our file data. So let's say that I have a create data step. I'm going to create, oh, wait. No, we have to save it as a file reference. My bad. Different step. File reference. Give me a moment. Add file references, get file references. Might be an internal service. Pardon me again. Integration, internal service. But the idea behind this is that you would create all of your entities as file references, right? You would create a file reference entity. This itself would be a file reference that you pass in from a user inputted file. So you could even do, I'm going to edit this real quick, document upload, file upload. All right. And this data type is going to be file reference. Perfect. The output type will be file reference. And we'll call this, let's call this file for now. So now when I run this, I'm going to actually not do this. And instead, I'm going to pass in my outputted file into here. And I'm assuming this would be a separate flow. This would not be the user forward flow. But what this will do is this will attach the file reference to a particular document. So pardon me, you can just use the document type because there are different kinds of, hold on, just give me a moment here. Hit OK, hit close. And now what happened here is this particular file reference is going to get attached to that document. And when I go, sorry, to that folder, and you can download it here. So the idea is now this folder would house all of your files as file references. And when you need them, either dynamically or within a form, you could use a fetch step that gets all of those file references that are in there. File reference. Yeah, file reference entity right here. Pass them out based upon certain criteria, right? You can limit the results, you can add fetch criteria and pass those into the form. Or you could show these dynamically in an active form flow. So there are multiple approaches here. There's not one right approach. You can also save these as documents into the decisions structure and have a similar layout to the file reference, except with documents, and fetch it by document ID. But I'm hoping that at least gives some ideas. I don't want to give a clear cut, this is the only way to do this, because that's going to vary by your process. But these are good examples and good ways to be able to get that information in and populate dynamically either pre-form or within the form. Any questions on
Thanks.
that?
That was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And yes, for the anonymous attendee, you can use the document type. There are different ways to approach this problem. Document type is good for being able to move files around within the form. If you don't want the document data to be present, or rather the file data to be present or saved somewhere, file data might be great just to pass through the flow and like have it end. So yeah, there are different ways to approach that. All right, Sean, I'm going to get to your question now. And I'm going to mute you while we read this. And I lost my participants. There you go. All right. So the question is, I need to load a list of data as unit information from Excel. And if a field is empty, then I'll be able to update it with default values. So I created data with some data structure. Then I need to compare the fields into data and build data based upon the logic. But as the number of columns are getting bigger, the step is becoming very slow to be updated and saved. Is there a better way to do this? All right. So if I'm understanding what you're doing, you have a structure that handles your Excel file and you are comparing particular column values to determine whether or not they need to be populated or not. But as the file gets bigger, it is tougher and tougher to do that comparison. Is that correct?
Um, Not exactly.
Okay.
Actually, it's a data structure is based on the a database table structure. So I need to populate the data from I need to load from Excel to this table. Um, so if the one of the fields have the value, so I use this value. If the value is empty, then I need to use the default value.
Mm, I see. And you're
So
going
I
through,
yeah.
oh, sorry, what were you saying?
So how did I implemented this? I created a create data two times, get two data, that same data structure. So one is stored all the default value. The other one is loaded from the Excel file. Then I go to, so I create the third data, which is try to build based on this two data.
Okay.
Then the third data it become pretty slow when try to load it because
Mm,
it's a I use a just very simple logic a converter to select to compare and select.
okay. So let's
So
see
is it
here.
so
You've got your data type, and then you're having node create data, or you're like importing from Excel here to map to that data.
yeah
Okay. Import Excel or CXV. I gotcha. And then you're gonna map it to your user defined type here. And then you're gonna pass in that file data, which we can just make it a constant for sake of example here. Number of columns would be 2 in this case. Column 1 mapping, we will pick name, and column 2 we will set to ID. I'm not ID, age. There we go. All right. So those get mapped there. That gives us a done path. And that's where the logic will go after that. The other three, I'm just going to hold placeholder step. This is just going to make things a little bit cleaner as far as our logic goes here. And now I'm going to drag this over here, disconnect, and I can go to the end step. And now we can put off our logic here. Okay. So import the data. You have it here. You're comparing it by a for each. Is that how you're doing it?
yeah
Okay. And you're going through every single row and you're
yeah
comparing if
at
the
the moment
field.
I just load one row.
Okay. And then let's flow data, enter. This will be imported data. For each thing in the Excel, we're going to compare it to this. All right. So my question is, how are you comparing? You're running a rule to do this?
No. I created another data which have the same data structure as a default. For example, name I put the Susan, the age I put 20. That's the default value. So if I read one row which don't have that value, then just by default we'll put this default value.
Okay, so you're creating the default values with a separate, I see. So you're going to go in here, you're going to import the Excel. If it's blank, you're going to map that particular input from here. Data decisions, let's build data on that.
Yeah.
All right, I get what you're saying. So that's going to be a constant. We'll set that 20H and we'll say the constant name is like John Doe or something like that, like a default. Okay. I get you. So this will be set in any column in here that is blank from our Excel data or any particular row and column. And it's taking a while to go through this list.
No, it's then I need to before I insert into the database, I need to build a list, and in the list, I need to build item. the item is based on default value and the loaded from the Excel file. So to build that item, it's getting very slow because I have around 100 columns.
I have a question on this then. So
Yeah,
you're building the item that has the default data in it, right?
yeah.
Does it have to be built, or can you just change the value of each row in this structure here? And then output this structure instead of building a new one?
Yeah, I don't know how to update the existing data.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not too hard. So, let's go with a, I think it's index. I think that's what it's called. Index, get an index with a remove item by index, get item.
Update item in the index.
Yeah, in list by index. Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
thinking here. So, and then for here, your index, where is it? Oh, this will do it dynamically. Okay, so let's go next here. We're gonna go through here. We'll say that the logic gets put in here to determine whether or not it should be updated, right? Blank,
Mhm.
not blank, that sort of thing. The original list is going to be, let's see, item index is actually going to be from flow data, and we're going to grab this item index, right? So this will go through each and every one, right? We'll have logic here that says, hey, if it's blank, update it. If it's not, go through this, right? The original list we're going to get from flow data. We will get the, that's fine. Doesn't have to be that. That should fix it. And then item to update. Ah, here we go. I'm picking the wrong type right here. That's why. That's why it's yelling at me. Okay, here we go. All right. So original list, let's get flow data, and we will get the imported data. And then item to update. Flow data. Where is it? To update. And then this is going to be the defaults right here, right? So, and then the output, I'm going to do, this is where it gets fun. So we can change the value of the original list with this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to take our imported data, select that. And now, instead of going through and building the new structure, this just alters the value of the other one with this. Now, there is a little bit more logic that needs to be configured with this. And the reason why that is because the item to update has to be able to pass in both items, right? Like only those that are blank we want to fill in this. So there are a few different ways that you can handle this. One is by actually doing the original list as here, item to update. Let's do build data, right? So we pass in
Yeah.
the age from our original list and we pass in the name from the other one if this logic does that. Or we could set our list input type to be string and just update it if that's blank, right? So it goes through each check and updates it here instead of creating the new structure from it. Now, performance-wise, I'm not 100% sure if this is faster. We would need to test that, of course, but this is another design principle that we could use in order to... Now, I'm just going to update... I don't actually have an Excel in there. Hold on. File data, file data. Give me a moment. Let me create an Excel real quick. This will not take long. Just give me a blank worksheet here and we'll call this, give me a moment. So this will be name, this will be age, and this will be just a moment. You don't see it on the screen yet just because I am putting in the data, and then we're just going to set the ages to everything except 24 basically. I mean 28, and then let's save that. And this is going to be, I'm going to call this LNL Monday. All right, and now I should have a file that I can drag over here that was just created. Where is it? Pardon me, this will take just a moment to find. There it is. Dragging it over. Cool. All right, so let's debug this. Let's see if this works. Oh, what do you not like? What do you not like? No data. What do you mean? Please check the file content to ensure that the file is well formatted. I just did that. Oh, I know why. You want to know why the thing failed? Because we asked for a CSV. There we go. Start on row 1, number of columns 2, import all worksheets. Yeah, worksheet index will be 0. There's only 1 here. Document password, none needed. Let's save that and see if this works now. So it imports it once. Oh, less value. Excuse me. Well, we're just going to send everything there. So I don't know why we got extra columns. Let's try this. Collection null. Interesting. What does it not like? What do we do wrong? Extra column, add outcome, add outcome, add outcome, input raw lines, and so Excel CSV, input file counts and data, LNL. That's fine. That's already saved. That's not an issue. Number of columns 2, start on row 1, import raw lines. I don't see an issue here. What would be the issue? Done, import data. And, huh. Do we have to remap it? Is that what it is? I'm not sure what's going on here, admittedly. Um, and then let's just do this again, see if this fixes it. Debug. Oh, what is it not like? All right, all right, all right. Here we go. Value conversion error. Target integer age. Age is not valid. Column number 2. Input line is name age. Ah, I see. All right. Well, let's start at the column below it then. Let's not start at the header column. Start on row 2, and that should fix it because it couldn't convert that. Hey, there we go. All right. Now we're going through. And now we have this being overriding everything, right? I don't think I passed in the correct data here in order to do that, but this is going through here. We have the collection coming in as name, null, age, null, and I'm not sure why that is. So it passed along everything, but it's not passing it into the proper places here. So let's see what's going on here. Number of columns are 2. We're starting on row 2. That's fine. Import all worksheets. Import raw lines, value conversion, that looks fine. Age, we already mapped it. View input mapping, yep, that looks good. And then flow data, file data, all right, constant, that looks all fine. No issue there. Let's save that. There we go, there we go. Look at that, look at that. All right, that's all it was. All right, so imported data. And then when it goes to each one of these, it goes to each item, right? It has a name, it has an age, and that item items to update. Oh, I think I pulled from the wrong thing because item to update should be the one that we're passing in from here. The original list has age 0, index 0. The original list should be coming from the create data step. Update item by list, imported data. Original list is going to be imported data here. We built data on that. And that's fine. I guess this isn't a list now, is it? But the idea behind this is that you have a step that's going through, updating it dynamically. Where does it say worksheet index -1? In here? That was don't see the negative
But
one.
where did you implement the logic to check
I have
whether
not
it
yet.
is? Oh, okay.
I have not yet. It would be in here. The idea is that your logic would come into here. It would determine whether or not the item needs to be updated. And when it does, it would go through this step afterward, pass in the item index of the particular item that needs to be updated, that row, right? Pass in the original list, which you can have that be a few different things. Also, I just realized I'm building on the item to update here, and I actually haven't passed that in here. So my original list would be coming from the imported data, right? Imported data comes in, which is the output right here, imported data. So imported data comes into this. Item to update would be the age from the flow. I disconnected, so you're not going to see it. The age would come from the flow, which is our created data, right? Our default list. Flow data, edit that. And then that's our default list, which is the data from decisions, age, boom, and then same thing with the name here. I don't mind spending more time offline to build something out like this for you that is a little bit cleaner and has a bit more logic. I just want to go over the process of what's going on here in a different building paradigm. That is, instead of creating the new thing from scratch, you are updating the previously existing one, therefore not having as much data within the flow. That might improve the speed of your process. There are other ways that this might be handled, such as maybe a rule collection filter might be able to parse through each particular item that you're going through, check whether it exists or not, and then what it can do here. I'm going to actually bring this over here so that you can see what I'm talking about. This would take a little bit of experimenting. But instead of having a flow a loop that goes through everything, you have a rule collection filter that would take in your data type, your unique data type here, all right? The input collection would come from the imported Excel. Let me hold on. This is being a little finicky on me. And then there's my done path. I want to edit that and drag it over here. So it would take in your input, right? Your imported data. You would have a rule here that could check each field, and on your result, you can do a few different things. So, hold on. You can return matches and non-matches. This will separate your data type into columns that need to be updated and columns that do not. And then from there, you can only work with the columns that need to be updated, and all the ones that don't need to go through a flow anymore.
Does that mean if I have 100 columns, so I need to have 100 rules?
It does not. This rule collection filter here will go through every single rule. Now, this rule itself, you may want to check, right? So maybe you can say contains. There are a few different ways you can set this up depending on your data. Let's say it's the entity, which is the one that you selected. All right. Equals is DB null. You could go through and add the rules here into your rule list that would check through each one. There may be a more performant way to do this, but you would set that up all within your filter rule. And if any of these are blank, then it passes out those fields. Any of the ones that are not blank, it would not even touch, and therefore you don't even have to work and update those. This is another possible approach to this. I can look into this off call and try to find something that works, but I just want to show you the different ways to approach this outside of constantly building the data, which may be
Okay.
more performant. I'll look at this offline though, and I will let you know if I can find any other ways to approach this, all right?
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay. For the anonymous attendee worksheet index number 1, yeah, that got updated. Whenever I changed the data type, that updated automatically to the index. So that was just my mistake, and I went in there and fixed that really quick. As far as would it be more performant to filter? That's what the second one is going for. The idea is that we're trying to filter the data by ones that need updates and ones that don't. What's also interesting about using rules to do this is that you have the option in a rule to output a change value, right? You can perform an action and change the value of an inputted check, which may be more performant to do that within the rule than trying to do that within a loop. The loop, it may be contained in a loop, of course, but there are different approaches to this problem here, and whichever one's more performant is admittedly unknown at this point. So I'm going to test that and we're going to check. But yeah, that is all the questions currently that we have asked. So yeah, I'll work on this offline.
To know that, like, my youngest.
The performance is not because the loop is within the step of build data. When you're updating it, right? Yeah. When you're trying to update all that stuff at once on the build data, I could imagine that would take a while because you're creating something, something as who knows how many rows in 100 columns. So anything that can just edit the columns individually instead of trying to recreate the entire imported file seems like it might be a more performant approach to this problem. That's what we're trying to do here is find an efficient way to update the columns rather than build it. Another option, and I'm going to go into this now because this is actually a possible way to handle this. Converting Excel to CSV and treat it as a text file and just sub everything that starts with space. That's true. We could do a file conversion and then use logic within the CSV. I was kind of getting a little bit into the idea of checking logic on the file itself before converting it into a data type. So there is a for each Excel or CSV step. Let me Excel row. There we go. For each Excel or CSV column. What this would do is this would go through every single row that's within your Excel file. And you can compare whether that row has null values or not, right? Anything in that row. So we can get like get row, I think that's what get row as array here. Let me see if this works the way I'm thinking it would. So we get the rows in array, which is going to be a list of strings. And then can we use a rule to filter out in the way that I'm hoping? Let's see here. I'm just going to make a new one. This is a little bit of an experiment. Let's see, set up input data. That's going to be a string list. I'm just going to call this array is list. Save that, pass that in. List contains any. No, I'll have to test this. I'll test this offline and see if this works. But my thought here is that if this list contains any values that are blank or null, then we have something that updates that particular null position, right? If it doesn't contain any at all, we just go to the next phase of this for each. And once again, now we're skipping rows that don't need to have anything built upon them and being able to just from this output determine whether or not the null exists. Again, I need to check this. I need to go offline and see how this logic would translate. But this is another idea to not even build data yet, right? We don't have to create data structures anymore. We just have one. Our Excel is coming in as, well, still in Excel, and then we build the data at the end. So now we don't need to do 1, 2, and then 3, right? We've limited it to just 2 options because we can do all the comparisons on the rows in the Excel file rather than doing it on the converted data type. This may save some time. But yeah. All right. Anyone have any more questions? Not update the whole row of default values. We only want a specific field. Yes. Oh, no. We're not trying to update the whole row. This isn't designed to update the whole row. It's just the idea of checking if the row even has any null values. If it doesn't, then we can just go to the next step and we don't have to run the updates on that particular one as well. I'm trying to avoid redundant logic on running it on rows that don't need updates at all, right? So this isn't to update the whole row. This is just checking whether the row even needs any sort of update at all. Again, I'm going to test this offline. But yeah, I'm not trying to update the whole row with every default value. It's just the particular fields with the particular values if they need it. Sure thing. Okay. I think I haven't seen any more questions pop up, and no one else has really joined the chat since then. So we'll give it a countdown of 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Thank you all for coming to this Lunch and Learn. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.